Hello, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, if you don't already know, my name is Alex and I'm here in South Korea as part of the EPIK program. So one of the most popular requests that I've actually got is about tips and tricks in order to pass the interview. So I'm going to break this video down into two parts. I'm going to break it down into the first part, which is going to be before the interview, how to get prepared, and the very first initial part of the interview. And then the second part of the interview is going to be like the questions that they ask and everything to do with what the interview will actually ask you in the process of the interview. So without further ado, if you like more of this content, if you want more EPIK content, if you want to follow my life in South Korea, if you just want to follow it because of me, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you like, and if you have any more questions, please drop it down in the comments. I'm more than happy to help you out. Or give me a follow on Instagram and I will message you back there. So let's go with tips and tricks of the EPIK interview. So firstly, the EPIK interview, it depends on how long it is. So my interview was about 25 minutes long. So I've heard stories that it could be between 15 minutes, it could be up to 40 minutes. So if you keep in mind like the ballpark figure of 20 to 40 minutes, then you can't go far wrong. And I have to say, like right off the bat, this is one of the easiest interviews that I've had personally. Like I've had my fair share of interviews in my life, whether that be for university, whether that be for like past jobs and stuff, but this interview was like particularly easy. I kind of took things at my own pace, and of course this is like completely my opinion of how the EPIK interview was, but comparing my past interviews, this was a very easy, laid back, chilled out interview, which I thought was quite surprising because you're actually moving away to teach as a foreign language and they're very chilled out about it, and I thought it would be such a big thing, but it really isn't. So don't get worrying too much. Like I'm sure you'll absolutely ace it. And if you listen to these tips and tricks, then you'll ace it even better. So yeah, I'm absolutely sure you'll be fine. So my interview was actually on Skype. So if you haven't got a Skype account or a Skype profile made up already, I'd 100% recommend making one. It will save you all the faff before, but it's very set up, it's free. So yeah, just make yourself a username, make yourself an email, and set up a Skype account. So this section is the before you start the interview. So of course, because this is a formal interview, you're expected to dress in a formal manner. So you put on like a nice shirt, a nice top or a blouse or something, but don't go like too all out. Like you definitely don't need like a suit or anything. Just a nice shirt will be absolutely fine. And also, what the hell? Also, make sure that you are like looking presentable as well. Like make sure your hair's done, looking professional, as first impressions really do count. And this is the first thing that the interview's going to see is your appearance. So before you even start speaking, they've already made a judgment of you. So bear in mind with time zones, the time zones can be kind of crazy. So my interview was actually at 2:30 in the morning, so I probably wouldn't recommend going to sleep and then waking up for the interview and then going back to sleep. Like personally, I just stayed up the whole night and waited around for it, so it gave me some time to plan. And yeah, because I just did not want to miss the interview, because I just thought, oh my god, if I go to sleep, I'm gonna be like not waking up, and even if I do wake up like 10 minutes before, I'll be all stressed, I'll be all messy, and like no. So personally, I would recommend just staying up if your interview's at like 2:30 in the morning. But yet regardless, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, like you still got to look like you're ready for a business day. And also another important thing with a Skype interview, like make sure that you test your equipment. Oh my god, it's like so important to test your equipment beforehand. So make sure your camera's working, make sure your microphone's working, make sure your laptop's fully charged. There is nothing worse than like setting up all your equipment 5 minutes before your interview and then realise, oh god, your battery's dead and you've lost your charger, or your microphone's set up but the audio's not working. That is a disaster. So please like make sure you set up like way in advance, like an hour and a half before, check everything's working, and you should be all good. Also bear in mind like the setting of your interview. So I just had mine at my dining table, like I had a plain wall behind. However, if you're conducting your interview when you're in bed, like you're slouched, you've got your laptop in front of you, you've got like the chins going on and everything like that, that is your first impression. And this interviewer might have had like 10, 15 interviews in that day. And bear in mind, if they had like 14 interviews that were all professional and a white backdrop, and then you've got you in your pajamas slouched over the camera, no, that's not a good look at all. So just bear in mind like how you're coming across. Make sure you're coming across professional, because nobody wants to see you in your Betty Boot pajamas. And also, this is something that I struggled with, and I'm probably struggling with right now, but make sure that you speak slowly. So more than likely, your interviewer is going to be a Korean native, so English is not going to be their first language. So speaking really fast, and oh my god, I just did that there. Speaking really fast. So speaking really fast, or using like really long words that they're probably not going to understand. Just keep this in mind, because especially when you're going for a job as an English teacher as well, this is their first impression of how you're going to teach an English class. And if you're speaking fast to an interviewer, and they don't understand you, how on earth is a kid in like third grade ever going to understand you? So just take things slow. And the interviewers are there to help you. Like, they're very relaxed, I've done this before, and I'm sure you will be absolutely fine. And finally, before you start, my biggest bit of advice is to print out your application form, but make sure you have a pencil to make notes, make any changes that the interviewer wants to make with your application. Like, they're going to have the application form right in front of them, so it's only good that you have it in front of you, and it's totally fine if you take like 10 seconds and like write and stuff like this afterwards. It's totally fine. So the interview itself is actually broken down into 2 parts. So the first part, the interviewer will go through your application form from the very first page till the very last page and just go through it section by section. So your first section, your application form, are all your details. So your name, your age, your employment history, your address, your phone number, blah, blah, blah. All that kind of detail. And it's just to double check they've got the right information to contact you and everything like that. And of course, absolutely nothing to worry about. Then they'll go down the list and see things like your preferences, so the preference of your schools, or the preference of your locations, or the preference of your age ranges. And they'll also see things like your health declaration form and things like this. And they'll just go through things just to double check that everything's okay. It's nothing to be worried about. They just literally just want to check like they've got the right information. They probably won't ask you questions about this at this stage. They're just more like double checking. So for example, like my degree, like it was a really long degree, and they were just double checking that like it was my actual degree. Yeah, it's like a joint honours degree. They were like, oh, okay, that's absolutely fine. And this process should go on for about like 10 minutes. Like, it's nothing too serious. It very much eases you in, and it's a good way to get you settled. And then this brings us on to the second part of the interview. So I'm actually going to make a whole separate video on the second part of the interview, and this is on the lesson demonstration. In summary, the lesson demonstration is you're literally there on Skype giving a lesson demonstration that you prepared previously, and you're given about a 5-minute demonstration to the interviewer who's acting as a child, and you're just going all out, showing how you command a teaching space. And you will get some time before this, like 2 or 3 minutes, just to prepare things and stuff. But like I said, I'm going to make a whole separate video on lesson demonstrations and tips and tricks upon that. So I know when I went into it, like I was completely blind. I was just like, whoa, like I did not really expect this. Like I did expect it, but I didn't really know how it was going to go. I'm going to talk about that in a separate video, so I'll skip this bit for now, and I'm just going to link that up above when I've made the video, so be sure to check it out. It will hopefully help you with your lesson demonstrations. And then after your 2 sections are completed, the interviewer will tend to ask questions. So for each interview, the questions are completely a broad spectrum. So I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not going to give you a definitive, this is what the questions are going to be asked, this is how you answer them, because that is just not a reality of the EPIK interview. There tends to be themes that the interviewers follow in terms of what they usually ask and what they usually don't ask. And I'm going to try and break those down for you in 5 easy sections of what you should look out for, what you should be prepared for, and good responses of what you can say to what they're going to ask you. So the first common question that EPIK interview is going to ask you, and I think this is pretty standard with pretty much any interview, but obviously with EPIK, they're going to ask you why you chose EPIK in the first place. In order to answer this, you need to do your research, of course. Like, you shouldn't have got this far if you don't know what EPIK is, like, period. But make sure that you understand that it's in public schools. Make sure you understand a little bit of the history. Make sure that you just have like a basic gist of what EPIK is. And they may also expand on this question and why you specifically chose EPIK. So why you wanted to work in a public school, why you wanted to teach English as a foreign language, and most importantly, why you wanted to teach in Korea specifically. You can teach anywhere in the world. You can teach English anywhere in the world. But why did you choose Korea? And this isn't like a question to throw you off. My interviewer asked, like, do I like K-dramas and stuff? And I was like, not really. But I really do appreciate like K-pop music and all this. And it wasn't a factor for me moving really at all. It was just a slice of Korean culture that I really appreciated. And the interviewer really appreciated this. She was like, oh my goodness, you like Blackpink? And we literally had like a discussion of who our favourite member is. No spoilers of who it is, but yeah, it's super relaxed. And if you can show that you're passionate about Korean culture and the Korean ways of life, then I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. And I can't stress this enough, like make sure that you come into Korea to teach as part of EPIK for the right reasons. If you want to come and travel, for example, for the whole year, that's not it. And if you were to say this, like, oh yeah, I've just come to travel, I've just come to physically live in Korea, I don't really care for teaching, then obviously that's not the right way to go about things. Okay, the second question, area, topic, thing that the EPIK interviewees will tend to focus on is your preference of location. So they will see that you've put a preference, whether that be like a big city, a smaller city, in the countryside, or that you're open to pretty much anywhere. So personally for me, I chose Daegu as my preference, of which I actually got Daegu as my preference. But I also ticked the little box that was underneath it and was like, are you happy to be placed in a rural location? I ticked yes, absolutely. And I think this is super important just to be open-minded, because if you go in, you've got Seoul as your preference, which is a very, I don't want to like be a Debbie Downer, but it's a pretty slim chance that you're going to get Seoul. But if you go open-minded, you're open to moving to the countryside, which is more authentic experience. Like I could tell you so many great reasons why living in the countryside is so much better than living in a city. But just bear in mind, there's so many people applying for these cities, and the majority of people aren't going to get them. You should really come open-minded. Like you're going to get a more authentic experience being in the countryside, and you should really emphasize this. And if you're going to be disappointed, if you're not getting the preference that you wanted, the interviewer is just going to look at you and be like, why on earth have you applied for EPIK then? And they might also expand on this point of, if you were to get a rural placement and your preference was a city, would you be disappointed? And of course the answer would be no, because there are so many great things about rural placements. If you're coming from a city back at home and you're getting placed in a rural location, it's going to be a culture shock moving to Korea anyway. So having a culture shock of living in the countryside, it really isn't that bad. Like I am loving living in the countryside. From my personal experience, even though I did put a big city and I am living in the countryside, from my personal experience, I am absolutely loving it. Maybe you can mention that the public transport is amazing. Maybe you can mention that you're getting a more authentic experience. But whatever you do, do not like complain that you're going to only want one thing, because that is just not the way to go about it. I'm sorry. Okay, one of the third type of questions the interviewer is going to ask you is to deal with co-teaching. So a big part of your experience of EPIK is working with co-teachers. So personally, I have 5 different co-teachers. I have one main co-teacher who does all my admin stuff and all this, that, and the other. But I have 5 co-teachers, and they all have very different styles of teaching. Like some of them will let me teach the whole class by myself completely. Another one of them is very much, I'm a games teacher, so I just appear for games. Another one of them is a bit more verbal, so they shout a little bit more. But they might ask you about like how you resolve disagreement. And just be honest, like you have to give and take in life, and it's the exact same with co-teaching. You're going there to show them your skills, you're there to learn off them, they're there to learn off you, and it is very much give and take. I think the number one thing that I've learned with co-teaching, like I genuinely love all of my co-teachers, but communication is key. Like if you're not enjoying something, or you see a way that something could be improved, or equally if your co-teacher sees something that could be improved in yourself, then it's just good to be open-minded and have a good line of communication with your co-teacher. And saying this as part of your interview will definitely make you stand out than someone that's very much like, I don't get on with people. Actually, I'm quite a rude person. Like, I don't actually work well with people. I don't really deal with confrontation well. So yeah, just make sure your communication's great, that you're open-minded about things. I feel like that's a running thing about being open-minded. And maybe even bring up ways that you've co-taught before or worked in a team. So the fourth question that they're going to ask you is how you deal with culture shock. And this obviously can depend on different kind of factors. How are you going to deal with the food? How are you going to deal with the language barrier? How are you going to deal with being stared at in the street? Because that is a very big part of living in Korea. Like the amount of stares that I get daily definitely exceeds over 100. Even though Korea is definitely a completely different country to places like America, South Africa, the UK, and places like that, Korea is also very similar in so many ways. Like you can get any product that you want. You can literally call anywhere in the world because the internet is amazing over here. Like personally for me, like I've not really felt that much culture shock over here, and I've not once felt homesick. And also there's a big expat community over here. Like everyone is there to help each other out. I've mentioned this so many times, but just be open-minded about things. Completely embrace a new place, a new situation. And of course, this will look good for you in passing the interview. And one of the final things that the interviewer will probably ask you is how to deal with like a misbehaving class, and how to deal with classroom management and teaching at different abilities. And I have to say, like in Korea, like generally the behavior of the classes is pretty impeccable. So like my classes are not like naughty classes at all. Like they can be a bit mischievous, they can be just very much children, they can be a little bit loud, they can be a bit silly. But in terms of things like bullying or being naughty, like that is, it's not really like a thing over here. Or at least not in my classes. Maybe I'm just doing something right, I don't really know. But it's important to tackle these issues when confronted with them. Your co-teacher is going to be there for like every single lesson, and they're going to probably deal with the majority of the behaviour issues. And in terms of teaching different abilities, like the abilities in my class are completely different. Like some students are amazing, like their English is actually better than mine. Some students are like really like they cannot speak like hardly any words at all. But your class is only as good as your lowest performing students. So just understand that you've got to set like a wide range of activities, because some students will literally finish in 10 seconds and some students will literally take the whole 40 minutes to complete one task. And if you explicitly show this to your recruiter, they're going to absolutely appreciate that. So yeah, I hope those pieces of advice helped you out a little bit. And like I said at the start of this video, there is no exact way that anybody knows how the interview is going to go. And every interview is different, and every interviewee is different, every interviewer is different. So I'm sure if you follow these tips and tricks, you'll be absolutely fine. So overall, the biggest advice I can give you is to be prepared. So make sure that your camera equipment is working fine. Make sure that you look the part, and make sure that you print out your application form. Go in confident, go in for the right reasons. And I've definitely mentioned this in the video about 100,000 times, but just be open-minded. Because if you just go in closed-minded, if you go in closed-minded the whole process of career, things just aren't gonna work out for you, because that is just the reality of it. You're here for the experience. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I've got my fingers, I've got my toes crossed, and I'm sure and I'm confident that it'll work out for you. And if it does work out for you, please let me know. Drop a comment down below, let me know how you got on, or if you have any more questions. Like I said, I'm available on Instagram. You can message me on in the comments down below. And like I said, if you want to see any more of this epic content, if you want to see my journey in career, if you want to see more about me, then make sure you subscribe. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon if you're watching this in the afternoon, or a good morning. Bye!